Hey, this is Mike Lindsay from Vital MX. I'm here with Steven Tokarski. We've got the 2026 Yamaha YZ450. This is not an all-new bike, but it's got a generous amount of updates. We've spent, me and you have each rode it for 3 days. Glen Helen, Paula, Kahia.
Yep.
You rode more of those tracks. I only rode 2 different tracks with it. And as you can see, we are standing in my backyard, and that's because we did not do the audio on this bike right after riding in GH. Normally we would do a first impression test. We get to ride the bike for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, and then we do our thoughts that day. With Yamaha's generous embargo. Some people don't like embargoes. I love them personally for this reason. We had this bike for almost 2 weeks before this was allowed to be, before we record this, but before we're allowed to publish it, which I enjoyed. It allowed us to put some extra time. So this is a little more than our usual first impression. We still have some things we want to try and tweak with this bike more, but it gives us a little bit better feedback going into it. And actually, I will say 3 days. Stevie's got a little more than that. If you haven't heard me mention before, we hired Steven Tokarski here from Yamaha, from the R&D department after 8 years. When was the first time you rode this bike, Stevie?
I believe April 2023.
Day or two ago.
Not this bike, but the first
version of what led to this.
The first prototype of many stages. And I will say, right out the box, we felt like the chassis was much improved.
Yeah.
So the first test, there's a main test rider in Japan. His American name is Kenny-san. I don't know how to pronounce his real Japanese name. So whenever they come over, they get an American name, which is much easier. And there's one guy that looks like Snoop Dogg, so his name is Snoop Dogg. Just funny stuff like that. But
I want to see what an Asian version of Snoop Dogg looks like.
I'll show you a picture. He tries many iterations of chassis and does all the hard work before they bring it here for US test riders and US tracks. And right out the gate, they did a good job of improving the main complaint of what I would say the former chassis iteration of being a little twitchy and a little fast moving overall.
Yeah. So that chassis is the main highlight for this year. So real quick, I'm going to burn through the main changes on this bike. So again, this is not an all-new generation bike. This is basically just an update of what we had. And Yamaha's really, I feel, good at doing this. If they run a model 4 years, 5 years, or even, God, this iteration might be 6 in all by the time it's done. Something like that. Maybe not.
I don't know.
Oh, okay, how about to say, he's trying to drop hints over here.
Plead the fifth.
Plead the fifth.
I'll get sued.
7, whatever it is. There's always a nice mid-gen refresh, and a good chunk of that is, every OEM does updates during a run, but I feel like Yamaha always kind of does the same thing. It's really addressing the first year. It's usually a chassis update, some suspension updates, some engine tweaks. Like it's a nice, generous amount of changes throughout the bike. So it's just updated. Some people will look, I know it's a little bit visually different because it does have a different rear fender. It has different side plates. The seat covers changed a little bit. The front number plate and front fender have changed. I will say
front fender has not changed.
The front fender has not changed, sorry. Front number plate, I don't
know.
know.
Blue radiator louvers.
Blue radiator louvers, rear shroud the same. PW50 front number plate is what I'm going to say. I'm sorry, it's driving me insane. I'll just say it. I'm just going to be that guy.
Hey, that's the product planning guys.
I'm sorry.
I'll blame them.
That was not a great call. The chassis is changed in 3 places. The shock tower is stiffer. It used to have basically like a cutaway drilled through section that's been filled in. So the shock tower is stiffer, applies more pressure into the shock and to the rear of the bike. The frame is stiffer and softer in a sense. So under the neck of the frame, kind of this head tube area, is how much thicker?
5 millimeters thicker.
And then right at the cradle, right below, above it, where the engine mounts are, is
5 millimeters thinner. So a little counteraction.
So we've got more flex at the bottom of the chassis, allow it to kind of flex in the sense of the chassis to the fork movement, allow it to move a little bit more to get a little bit better comfort, a little bit more stability. It's not as rigid there, but we have more direct front end input because this area of the frame is stiffer, which we'll get into. That plays into a very interesting way suspension work. Suspension is heavily updated at both ends. Pretty different setting because the chassis is stiffer. The shock actually has a larger compression adjuster right now. It has a larger shock body housing for that. And then the engine does have some changes. The cam timing has been changed by, I believe it's about 3 degrees. The cam lobes are the same. And I think there's a small transmission change. Didn't we figure it like second? No, there is not.
No.
Okay. Clutch has changed. We are on a hydro now. The pack pressure is higher. That's part of the reason we'll go to hydro. We'll get to more of that in a minute.
We have a toolless adjuster for compression on the rear shock now.
Low speed. High speed, you just gotta have a tool.
Yeah.
And then engine-wise, part of the reason we have any engine changes is the big talk point this year for the engine is we are at 109 decibel sound. There is a new sound limit coming through in Europe that will eventually hit US. Europe and racing has gone from 112 to 109 max. We are currently in 114. We were supposed to go to 109 next year. It's actually been pushed 1 year by the AMA, but it affects European motocross more because of like local tracks and clubs that adhere to those rules more. So all your OEMs are starting to go this direction with more closed off air boxes, more restrictive exhaust to try to get the sound down, because they don't want to build they want to build one spec bike if they can worldwide. They don't want to try to build Europe spec bikes and US spec bikes. So we are heading that direction. I believe the Triumph's already there because they came out knowing that was coming. The Ducati is coming out, has already come out in that direction.
Kawai's close.
The Kawai's close. Ducati and Triumph there. Kawai's close, but not quite there. This is Yamaha's iteration. This is a true 109 bike. So this is a different muffler, different head pipe that has basically what looks like an FMF powerbomb. It's got a little resonance chamber up there in the front. It does have a different air box. And then, oh, the other thing I forgot to mention on the head engine is the cylinder head is now a flat floor intake import instead of a round oval. Yep. So again, they're bringing the sound down quite a bit, and part of that is they have tweaked the power to bring it back, but we have, in result, ended up with a smoother engine, which for some, they're gonna cheer because the Yamaha has always been aggressive, and I feel like all of our power tuners are always to try to get it a little bit mellower.
Yeah.
Some people might miss that, and we'll get into that. So your three key takeaways are your chassis change, your suspension change, and your engine / sound update. Stevie, give me your good and your bad initial impression. Give me your good shot first, and then your initial bad that your first 5 laps on the machine.
First was chassis. Felt a little more compliant, a little more front end contact feeling and traction feeling, a little more calm in the bumps. So just the easier, more comfortable ride with the chassis feel. A little more stable at high load, less moving, a little less handlebar movement. And then the engine for me, a little easier to manage. I appreciate the torque and power feeling of the old bike, but I can understand and ride this longer with more energy, or I save some energy. So just a smoother, easier to ride engine. But for me, a little bit of a gearing hiccup for me. I feel like the 51, it's tough because second gear.
Small note, we went from on the old engine, I forgot to mention,
49 to 51.
We're on a 51 now, yes.
Which we were at 50 for most of testing, and then at the end went to 51 because of being a little worried about not having enough low power where this bike really shines. So going to that, really the 51 makes second gear kind of short. I'll just say it is short. It's not as usable as say a Kawai 450 second gear. And then from second to third has a pretty big gap where the RPM drop off is a little more than I would like. And then third is real long feeling versus second gear, and it's a little more difficult to use third gear in corners. Suspension, I really like the rear shock changes. It has more comfort, light load stuff. Just a little easier to, when I'm accelerating out of corners, I just feel like I feel a little bit less of the bumps. But for me, one of my main negatives is the balance of stiffness level from shock to fork. I feel like the fork is too stiff, I'll just plain up say it. Too stiff, especially mid-stroke. It has a stop feeling. It's a little busier than I expected and doesn't have that great YZ plush character that they've been known for decades now. So, and then I'll just say it too, the seat, they did rechange it with a new grip that's supposed to be a little better, and it's really, say you need stitches, you need 20 stitches, but you just put a Band-Aid on it. That's kind of what they did with this seat. The seat shape and stiffness level is a little, I'd like to see a little more square feeling, and so I don't feel the base of the seat when I hit stuff a little farther back if I'm on the edge of it. So simple stuff like that, but overall easier ride character for me and a more manageable power.
So I'll go with mine. My pros for the 3 main characteristics of the bike: chassis, straight up same. It's just more, a little bit more compliancy, but consistency and just calmness. It doesn't react on area 1 into a corner as abruptly. It isn't. It doesn't feel sensitive to balance on the front. It doesn't get as doesn't have as much instability. So for me, it's calmer. It's a little slower reacting coming into the corner, but I've always been on record of I actually don't like bikes that are super on the nose coming into the corner or super responsive to turn in. I want to be calmer. It's easier for me to it's easier for me to spend the time setting up from area 1 to 2, where if it's really on the nose, yeah, you can cut in on stuff, but I feel like I'm constantly countering it coming, like to try to get from area 1 to 2. I feel like I'm doing too much to counteract what's going on.
Well, it is 0.7 pounds heavier, so you're very sensitive. You might be feeling that.
So I appreciate the chassis. I've always also said this is, I will say, like, me and you went on record on our testing and tech pod talking about, we feel like a lot of the OEMs have gone too much towards bikes that are on the nose, that are too front end input related, that are too much like tight steering, a lot of front end feel. Because yes, you get a lot of peak performance when you're in the window. Like, the bikes are amazing, but it's really easy to get out of that window, and I feel like they're really inconsistent. And I would rather have a bike where I'm a couple tenths theoretically slower because of handling, but it do the same thing every single lap. Because I can't stand when I just I can do something perfect one time and I blow it the next 3 laps. So chassis, I'm very positive on. Suspension, my positive note is towards the shock. He says, like, I think the comfort's really good at the shock. I think combination of chassis change and shock change, I feel like rear traction is really good. And I also think rear traction is particularly good with the new compression adjuster. Just, I don't know if it's the oil amount it can flow and just how like supple it feels going from rebound to compression, but really hard packed, choppy acceleration chop, it just floats really well. It doesn't like feel like it packs or gets stuttery on that kind of stuff. It feels like it moves really well in those areas. So I feel like the rear end feeling to the ground is really good to me, and I'm on record as being more of a rear steer guy, so when I can feel the rear tracking, I'm a happy camper. And then my last positive, the engine, is the fact that it is smoother, even though I'm on record usually saying I do like aggressive 450s because they're fun and playful. I do appreciate the smoothness in this bike though, and I also like that it is more connected. I thought the old YZ450 was still pretty connected, but I think this is a really connected feeling power right now. Now my negatives. Chassis, I don't really have one. The only thing it plays a little bit of front fork is maybe the added rigidity up here might add a little bit to hand feel, like feeling of energy through the hands.
We also got new engine mounts too.
Oh yeah, we do have new lower mounts. They're thinner as well, right? Or no, different material?
No, one's a 4mm and one's a 6.
Overall chassis, I really have negative. My negative for suspension is same as you. Front fork is too strong, and it's low load initial comfort that is missing for me. I liked mid-stroke on. I like high load performance, like deep material, big G outs.
8 to 6.
8 to 6.
Sorry.
Big G outs were good for me, but initial chop was not as good. And then engine, the negative is the same as one of my positives, is it is a little smooth now, and it's mostly gearing though. Second to third gap is weird. I would probably go down a tooth to use second more. Second feels a bit short, and I feel like my shifting from second to third, the more time I've spent on it, the better it's gone. I've just gone to the point I'm really revving out second really far, but I'm not quite perfect in that area. Let's jump into me and you's complaint is on the front fork. So when we both rode this bike, completely stock base setting, we each didn't give each other feedback. Then you made a change. You went too softer on compression and too faster on rebound to try to get the fork moving.
Yeah, just trying to get it through mid-stroke a little better.
Which I agreed with. I got on it. The comfort was better, but I thought it was a little busy in area 2. The front just didn't feel like it was settling. So I came back and said, hey, do you want to try just going softer? So I think I told you I tried softer, but I'm like, it's good and bad. You went softer, then came back and put your rebound back. So we went back to standard rebound, and we went to 4 clicks out on compression. Comfort was a lot better initially there.
Yeah, so I had a more compliant feel, a more progressive feel through the stroke. Didn't feel like it was stopping in mid-stroke and then getting more handlebar movement. But did feel like it was getting a little deep, and the shock was overpowering the front a little bit. So then I did a high-speed change on the rear. We went back and forth in testing from 1 1/4 to 1 1/2 at the final stages of this when we get to clicker 8 time. And our final prototype test, we were at 1 1/2. But then when they get a pre-production bike, they still have a chance to go out and change clicker settings only. So they'll get a pre-production bike, go out, and they're allowed to, okay, we can adjust this. So they went from 1 1/2 to 1 1/4 on high speed, which I was not involved with. I was gone by then. So for me, just felt like it was a little overpowering the front, and I wanted just a little more balanced stiffness level. So went 1.5, and then also went a little slower on rebound, just to kind of get it a little more calm feeling. And that seemed to balance it out better, had more comfort, more performance, and was just a more level ride attitude as well.
And then the couple extra days we rode it, I've tried to go softer on the fork even from there, because I still think compared to prior YZs and KYBs, the comfort on the front still could be improved. But as I went softer, we started to lose a lot of mid-stroke on performance and high-low performance, basically G out, soft conditions, heavy braking. If I open it up any further, the initial comfort does get a little better, but it starts losing too much performance the rest of the way around. So,
and we're already, stock is 12 clicks, so going to 4 out.
We're at
from
16,
that, we're at 16.
So I went
That's
like,
open.
I tried 18 and 19.
Yeah. So there's a window where suspension techs tell me they don't like going too far soft or too and getting it too tight, and so that was getting on the edge of, which I thought going more soft is what I needed anyways, because it still felt stiff overall.
Well, 18 and 19 for me felt better like on ride a vet track, like really stuttery little stuff, it was good, but anything with ruts or a bigger jump face or a more abrupt jump face, got somebody riding the neighborhood today. Yeah, we end up losing too much performance. So my takeaway is, as we continue riding this over a couple days, was what I like about the bike right now is the calmness in the chassis again, just the predictability and repeatability of certain things. I like that about it. The engine, I've gotten more and more used to. My main complaint is gearing, because right now my second to third gear is a little awkward. Like I said, I'm revving. Second feels short, so I was shifting to third really quick, but then I was too early of an RPM place in third, so I was kind of going back and forth between really revving out second. I would rather just go down a gear and get second more usable, not have to shift right before obstacles, because like the outgoing bike felt, and then have a really long third. The only thing with this power output is if you go from a 51 to a 50, third is not going to be super usable in corners. You're really going to pigeonhole yourself to second. I'm really overall happy with the shock, some tweaks here and there. The fork just does, we have overall, this is our backwards point. This to me has lost comfort from outgoing bikes. It's still not terrible. I think the problem is the Yamaha and the KYB are the gold standard together. So it's not, there's still other bikes I prefer this over, but we've taken a step back there.
So they went from a 107 millimeter pressure spring to 112, so a longer pressure spring. And then some of the shims in the shock, some suspension techs I've been bullshitting with on this bike have said it's very close to Supercross setting, which is pretty gnarly. Yeah, so also when we went to Kauai, a big change for me was going from 2 millimeters on fork height to 5 millimeters. I was really struggling with high load stability in the front, where it just wouldn't get through mid-stroke no matter how soft I went. So then it would either be too far on the front, and I was just looking for a little more comfort, a little more calmer feeling out of the front, and I got that with the 5 millimeter here. 4 clicks softer on compression and 2 slower versus stock on the front fork, along with my high speed going to from 1.25 to 1.5, 2 on rebound slower, and then I actually went to from 105 sag to 107. Kind of just dropped the whole bike down, and it doesn't seem like that would help high load stability or high speed situations, but for me it did. It really helped make the front fork get through that mid stroke and have a more progressive feeling, and just made this bike a little calmer and a little more stable overall.
Yeah, so again, on your point there, like a lot of people would think pulling the forks up, basically making the wheelbase shorter, bringing the front end closer, put more weight. Normally, most people are like, oh, that should make it more unstable, not stable. But you do get to a point where if suspension, chassis, whatever you want to call it, a combination, if you're too stiff on the front, you can get instability, because like you said, the fork moves to a certain point and tries to stop. So eventually that energy has to go somewhere. If the front were to absorb it, then it starts to deflect off the surface. So that's where you can get instability. So that's what you solved by bringing that fork up a little bit.
And I gained a lot of cornering performance too. So it was already cornering well, but just lowering the whole bike, especially at Kauai, where they don't rip the track. So it's a lot of flat, low traction corners. Really helped that for me on this.
One One we didn't really touch on too much is going to a hydro, and I know, yes, I'm sorry everybody, this is the near death of the cable clutch because the only 450 left in class with it is a Suzuki.
And they're coming out to test now with Roxon. They're gonna put that hydro on soon.
Maybe. They're doing any start, they're getting there. But if you're hardcore, you have to have a cable clutch bike, I'd give you two options. You either go buy a Suzuki RMZ450 this year, go buy a leftover YZ450, or figure out how to add a cable to this, which somebody in testing told us there's a way to do it. It's not a bolt-on like it was before. You're gonna have to modify the case a little bit.
Correct.
So we'll figure out how that's done shortly.
I'm sure someone will come out with some type of
somebody
kit.
will figure it out. Positives, though, I will say, hydro. So the outgoing YZ450, and this is becoming more and more common with any bike as power outputs have gained 250 and 450s together. The clutches have not really grown in size much over the years. We've gone to the DDS style clutches and some stuff like that, but we're adding pack pressure. We're not getting bigger clutches, so we're having to add pack pressure to keep them from slipping. Eventually, you add enough pack pressure, cable clutches feel like garbage. Unless you really start to change the leverage ratios and things of that nature, you start to really struggle with cable feel. So by going to the hydros, it's easier to go to higher pack pressures. They've done that here. They've changed the inner hub for better oil flow. They've upped the pack pressure a lot, which I think if you didn't have that, this bike would probably feel a little more lethargic with the engine change because the clutch would slip.
Yes.
So we've got a little bit more precise clutch. Now, again, with you being part of testing, tell me what effort went into getting this hydro to a point that you guys like using it. What were the key, like, we have to do this to get this in a good place?
We wanted, obviously, to make the window of disengagement to engagement a wider field, so get it pretty close to a cable feel. We did have some iteration. There is some, like the KTM has a really smooth pull, really light pressure, to where it's very on-off.
Yeah, because it's almost so easy to pull, you just go.
So really focus on trying to get a good window of disengagement to engagement to make it very easy to manage and still have a good feel. And another thing we did was try to have the window of it be more out farther than when so you don't have to pull it in as much.
Yeah.
So that helped with just make this a little more manageable. I still prefer the feel of a cable just because I can manipulate my power a little more. But overall, this is a really good hydro clutch that they came up with, and just almost to that cable feel for me.
So wrapping it all together, somebody jumps, you got a customer, somebody comes up to you and goes, what am I gonna like about this 26 YZ450? What are you gonna tell somebody that walks up the street and wants the 30-second spiel? What are you gonna like about it? What are you not gonna like about it?
It's easier to ride just because it's calmer chassis, more stable, easier to corner. It has a more manageable power. You don't have to be as worried that it's just gonna rip your hands off the bars if you get on the gas. And then suspension, you're gonna have to work a little bit on. Mainly the front fork, you're gonna need to go, for most people, softer to make it feel, to get that plush character back that the YZ is known for. But overall, it's easier to ride, just gives you more confidence as a rider that you can get more out of the machine than what the older YZ450 was like.
I agree with that. My comment to somebody would be it's going to be easier to ride than the outgoing generation bikes. It's going to be calmer. It's going to be more predictable, more repeatable when you ride it. The engine, I will warn some people, it might be a little, if you're coming off the old YZs.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, this is not as soft as a KX or a Triumph.
No, it's still one of the strongest in class, I believe.
It's just softer. If you're looking for that really quick build RPM, that really playful feeling engine, you're gonna miss that a little bit. You can change the airbox. Yamaha has a performance airbox kit for GY2. It's basically a replica of the old airbox without the sound stuff in it. You could swap the pipe very easily. You can swap the mapping. However, the cam timing still plays a part into that power characteristic. You can get a chunk of it back, so that's not hard. But to be warned, if you like the YZ, but you've always thought, I just need it to be a bit calmer, cool, we're good. If you like the old power, you're gonna have to tweak that a little bit. Chassis across the board, unless you just like diving to inside ruts all day, you're gonna like this chassis better.
Yeah.
I think most people are gonna like the rear feel of this bike better. I even like the side panel feel, just the connection point, like the back half of the bike. The negative for, I think most people out of the box are gonna think these front forks are too stiff, and they've again lost that gold standard that the Yamaha and KYB combination has had before. And what I mean by that, it's down to, again, same as engine comment, like it's still better than quite a few bikes in the class, but it's gone from the point where I used to see square edge little curb bumps that on every other bike, no matter how good you have your suspension, you still feel the energy. Like, you can have an example, like a lot of people say, like, take a KTM with a good set of air forks, you can get them moving good, but you're still gonna feel that square edge looking curb bump in some shape or form. In Yamahas before, I would literally go, oh, I already went past it.
And I feel like since we got multiple days on this, course toughness, which means how does the bike, your setup from track to track change, has gotten a little a bigger of a window. So now, before I could go 2 clicks softer or 2 clicks stiffer, you know, front and rear, and be good at all these tracks, where now I have to do a little more adjusting throughout the machine, 4 kite, maybe go 4 clicks, just a bigger window of having to adjust the machine to get that happy spot for me.
So are you feeling like, you're saying you think track toughness has gone worse on this because of the fork?
A little bit, yes.
Do you
Just
think
suspension setting wise. Chassis, no, but just getting that suspension to where I'm happy with it from track to track is a little more difficult now.
Yeah, I think the bike has at most this portion of the bike, so back half of the bike engine, I'm saying track toughness is better, the fork is that big of a drawback. So I tell most people, like, hey, be very ready on this bike too. Hey, a lot of guys used to just jump on YZs and leave the suspension stock all year. I do think the forks, for a lot of guys, unless you're extreme low, like you are top level speed, you're a bigger rider, or you're, the only other thing I can say is, like, Foxmore, like if you're dealing with really deep conditions, it's not as bad of a box, but if you deal with any form of hard pack, stutter, low load bumps, you're gonna find that these forks are probably a bit too stiff out of the box. We've got about, I don't know, 6 weeks or so until shootouts, early November, because we're still waiting on the Austrian bikes, the KTM group. We're still waiting on a new Triumph, so we'll wait for that for shootouts to see where this falls into the hierarchy. It's 1 and 1 for years and years. We're gonna do some more individuals. One of my fair one me and you talked about is we both rode our stock KX450 this week, and I think it may have actually taken the crown as most comfortable chassis suspension.
Don't give away the video, but
maybe not. We're gonna do it against these two in the meantime.
I was a little shocked with my impression.
Same. So if you have any thoughts on this, if you want to know more about, if there's anything you think we can answer now or something you want to throw at us to answer as we go down the road, because I think next up we're gonna do some gearing changes on this. We're gonna do some oil height, some other basics.
Get a different bar pad.
Get a different bar pad and loop back around. But if you have any thoughts, throw them in the comments section below. And as always, if you like our content, thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.